Good evening, this is Ntv Weekend Edition. We'll get right into it with a look at the headlines.
We should go deep to the root cause of this problem.
Widen your net. KASESE political leaders ask police to broaden their investigations into the Rwenzori region tribal clashes.
The Parliamentary Committee on Appointments has rejected Immaculate Semanda Nachimera from heading the National Petroleum Authority on ground that she is not assertive despite her competence. Join me, Jingo Francis, with the details of the story.
The World Cup finals are just around the corner, but how is the security situation in the country?
Security agencies have cleared Nambole as the only formally recognized place to show live the 2014 FIFA World Cup final between Germany and Argentina tomorrow. Join me, Alfredo Dong, for the details of this story.
You are watching Ntv Weekend Edition.
Good evening once again. I am Rukshana Namuimba. In a top story tonight, as investigations into tribal clashes in KASESE continue, some members of parliament from the Rwenzori region want them to focus more on who planned the attack and who they suspect could have had selfish motives. In an interview with NTV today, MPs Yokasi Bihande and William Nzogu said the manner in which the attacks were carried out shows that some big fish had an upper hand in facilitating and coordinating the whole process. The call comes a day after the Inspector General of Police, General Kale Kaihura, gave assurance that they will leave no stone unturned in their investigations, and I'll be bringing you that report a little later on. Now, the House Appointments Committee has flatly rejected Dr. Immaculate Semanda Nachimera, who was selected by the President to head the National Petroleum Authority. The committee also rejected Naomi Lumutenga, who had been appointed a member of the authority. Francis Jingo with more.
President Yoweri Museveni recently appointed a team of 14 Ugandans to be in charge of the National Petroleum Authority and the National Oil Company. Dr. Immaculate Semanda Nachimera was appointed to chair the National Petroleum Authority, a coveted role. Other members are Ruben Kashabuji, Doreen Kabasindi, Kirio Wachiwanuka, Professor Sunday Stephen Tokodri, Naomi Lumutenga, and Peter Lominit. However, the Appointments Committee of Parliament last evening rejected Nachimera. Sources who attended the meeting but could not speak on record because they are not allowed to disclose committee proceedings informed NTV that Nachimera was rejected on grounds that she is not assertive enough to handle such a sensitive docket. Nachimera holds a doctorate in geology and petroleum studies, and she is a lecturer at Makerere University. Sources also told NTV that the committee also rejected Naomi Lumutenga, who had been appointed as a member of the authority on grounds that she lacked the necessary qualifications in the discipline of petroleum. The committee, chaired by the Speaker Rebecca Kadaga, gave Emmanuel Katongole the green light as the top honcho of the National Oil Company. Sources reveal that Katongole faced a barrage of questions about his integrity. When he was tasked to defend himself on allegations that he mismanaged funds from government to run Quality Chemicals, a factory which produces ARVs, Katongole tabled the evidence from the IGG, which cleared him.
When it comes to ARVs, before we came in, there were about 200,000 people on antiretroviral medicines. Because we manufacture our own medicines, right now the number has gone up to over 500,000. You saw it's not. We give employment to so many people. Background, I've been in business in private sector for the last 25 years. I think I should be able to bring the best practices learned, both national and international, to run the National Oil Company.
Katongole will work with Godfrey Andama, Francis Nagimesi, Biwaga Stella Maris, Tuwita Grace, Irene Pauline Batebe, and Francis Trina Masiko. Jingo Francis, NTV Weekend Edition.
Now, one of the causes of alcohol addiction is the pursuit for happiness to avoid possible depression. But addiction spawns problems as those hooked stare at a rather bleak future. The journey to overcome addiction is a painstaking one, as we found out when we spoke to a former addict turned counselor. Derek Miganda shares his experience with Solomon Kawesa.
Last month, Uganda Youth Development Link, an organization which tackles alcohol and substance abuse amongst youngsters, published a report which indicated that many youths contract HIV through having unprotected intercourse. In Uganda, many start drinking when they are underage because the sale of alcohol is not restricted. What begins often as a trendy lifestyle induced by peer pressure can often turn into a ravaging addiction. 7 years ago, Derek Miganda was amongst those hooked to drink. According to him, a drinking problem often spills over from home to the socialization process, especially amongst teenagers.
This is what people don't understand. People do not choose to be addicts. You know, I didn't wake up and say, you know what, I want to be an addict. You know? I want to not have a problem with alcohol. I also wanted to be a social drinker, but my body was different.
Many addicts want to leave the drink, but this is not possible without help.
If they drink alcohol and they exhibit certain symptoms, they become thirsty. They want more and more and more alcohol. They cannot seem to stop. These people, alcohol affects their family, their work.
Some of the best ways to rehabilitate addicts is through counseling, lobbying them into faith-based discipline, and hospitalization.
My experience, alcohol put me down and I got help. And I have been without for a number of years, a good number of years.
According to research, in the next decade, many youth and adults could fall into the bottomless trap of addiction if government does not take pragmatic steps. A CNN study conducted last year ranked Uganda top on the continent in alcohol intake and 8th in the world. Solomon Kawesa, NTV.
Now we return to our earlier report, where as investigations into tribal clashes in KASESE continue, some members of parliament from the Rwenzori region want them to focus more on who planned the attack and who they suspect could have had selfish motives. In an interview with NTV today, MPs Yokasi Bihande and William Nzogu said the manner in which the attacks were carried out the manner in which the attacks were carried out shows that some big fish had an upper hand in facilitating and coordinating the whole process. Their call comes a day after the Inspector General of Police, Kale Kaihura, gave assurance that they will leave no stone unturned in their investigations.
So far, over 100 people are in police custody after security agencies carried out an operation to apprehend people who took part in last weekend's attacks in the districts of Toroko, Bundibujo and KASESE. And as the police vows not to leave any stone unturned, also warning that all the perpetrators will be arrested, some MPs think the focus should be on the masterminds behind the attacks and clashes.
Actually, this was a mafia group. This was a thuggery group that could have been instigated by a certain selfish individuals, whom right now I think it is prudent on intelligence agencies to find out who could have actually instigated this.
The target should be on those who used those young men and women, the planners of the whole institution, either those radicals or those who are anti-Obusinga. We should go deep to the root cause of this problem, because I still believe that there was still room for negotiation.
As investigations continue, some voices believe that the government should stop ignoring some of the long-standing concerns of the people if a lasting solution into the clashes is to be found.
There was already tension in the region. Tension over the culture, tension over the shortage of land. So anybody could have used that frustration to achieve his selfish motives.
Meanwhile, KASESE District Woman MP Winnie Chiza says that by this time, preliminary investigations should be pointing at a particular group which carried out the attacks. She has asked government to speed up on the inquest to enable them to take care on which groups they should not associate with.
Because when people unite, they should unite under a particular name. What is the name of the attackers? Because they would now be telling us preliminary investigations indicate that the attackers had possibly united the ADF, the Nalus, and maybe some Rwenzori veterans.
In a related development, government continues to give its reassurance to the people of KASESE that it will do all it takes to avoid a reoccurrence of such attacks. This message was relayed at the installation of KASESE Bishop Aquirinos Chibira.
The President was saddened by certain events which took place recently. He hopes that this will not be repeated and that the people will continue to cooperate.
July 11, 2010 was a day of infamy. Suspected Al-Shabaab cells targeted those who were watching the World Cup final, killing about 76 Ugandans. There was an emotional outpouring of grief as families mourned their loved ones. This day has since then changed the political landscape in the region as security agencies attempt to forestall future attacks, while insurgents attempt to establish a foothold in the region. In the first part of a series titled The Day After July 11th, Emam Taiziwa examines an insurgents' hub in the region and its link to the Kampala attacks.
This is Eastleigh, a Somali community bastion on the outskirts of Nairobi. Security officials here claim that beneath the bustle of merchant trade in this area thrives illicit gun runners and sleeper cells.
Eastleigh suburb in Nairobi holds a large Somali community. With a wave of insecurity, security forces have raided this place to look out for wrong elements. But this has been marked with extrajudicial detentions and racial profiling.
I want to ask the President, what about Somalis who have been arrested without due process, who have been arrested without any legal procedure? What about Somalis who have been arrested by the police every now and then and nobody is speaking for them?
The police is some Somalian people, and you can see some people, they have ID and they born here and been arrested without asking any identity.
Eastleigh is on the radar of security agencies in the region, including Uganda. Highly placed sources at the heart of investigations into the July 11th Kampala terror attacks claim the suspected mastermind Musa Dere lived in this area. As a way of forestalling future terror attacks, Uganda's counter-terrorism agencies currently run covert security rings in Kenya. As the country mourned the dead punctuated with collective grief, security experts say the masterminds of this mayhem, Musa Dere and the one Jabril, an explosive expert who visited Kampala at least 4 times before the attack, traveled to Mogadishu. Jabril, a reclusive figure and part of the Al-Shabaab intelligence wing, had run several errands for the insurgents in the region. Musa Dere grew up in Wajir, a northeastern town in Kenya. Later on in life, Musa became radicalized by a friend. In Al-Shabaab circles, he was known as Abdullah Dere. He's believed to have met Fazul Muhammad, the ringleader of the Al-Qaeda in East Africa, in 2004 Mombasa, and became his personal assistant. Musa Dere lost one of his legs while fighting in Mogadishu, eventually returning home for treatment in 2006. He operated from Mombasa, recruiting jihadists in Nairobi and Wajir. In 2009, Musa, who had legal documents as a Kenyan national, rented a plush house in Nairobi's South Sea estate, where he lived with his sister. Although he did not have formal education, Musa spoke English, Swahili, Arabic and Somali, a gift that he used to carefully craft his movements across the porous borders in the region. In Nairobi, he had a close relationship with some of the Somali clerics in Eastleigh and regularly prayed at the Jamia Masjid in central Nairobi. The Jamia Masjid, the mosque in the central business district, offered radical preaching, and some of those who frequented it were recent converts, where the message of jihad against those who had invaded holy lands gained traction. According to security sources, barely months before the attacks, Musa Dere reached out to some of these converts to establish sleeper cells for the mission. As the afternoons wore on, so did the plan fall in place. According to sources close to the investigation, Haj Suleiman Nyamandondo, a brother to two other terror suspects of Kenyan nationality, traveled by bus from Arusha in May 2010 and met fellow cell members in Nairobi. He was later handed bomb-making materials, including the suicide vests, and traveled by bus to Kampala through Malaba border post.
There are porous entry points across this area. We've been told by locals that it's quite a lucrative business to help foreign nationals like Somalis, Eritreans, or Pakistanis cross into Uganda. It could earn you anything between $200 to $500 US. However, stringent measures have been put in place at the Malaba entry point to ensure that any terror threats are nipped in the bud.
He was received by Issa Luima, the ringleader of Uganda's terror cell, according to security sources. Sources reveal that after the delivery of the bomb-making materials in May, another 4 young men beat the lax security at the border and sneaked into the country in June. They planned to carry out attacks within the same month, targeting American interests. But the plan aborted because they had not received enough logistics in time to execute their plot and had secured a safe house, which they later discovered was close to the home of a UPDF officer. The 4 men returned to Kenya, promising to come back as fast as possible to accomplish the task at hand. Emmanuel Mutaiziwa, NTV Weekend Edition.
We will continue with the series tomorrow when we shed the spotlight on the death of mastermind Musa Dere and also reveal how the attacks were executed. Now, the issue of laxity insecurity has been a major talking point during this World Cup season. This is so especially with the memory of the bomb blasts in Kampala in 2010. Over 70 people were killed as they watched the football tournament's final game. But many entertainment venues still take the safety of their clients for granted. NTV sampled some of these places in Mukono town. Meanwhile, security experts advise that ahead of the games, it would be wise for the proprietors to ensure that their bars or clubs are thoroughly combed using sniffer dogs before allowing anybody in. NTV's Sudhir Berhanga explores this matter.
We hit Ginger Road from Mukono town to get a feel of the security situation ahead of the key World Cup matches tonight and tomorrow. Our first stop was at Hippo's Sports Bar, where the management is expecting over 150 fans here to watch the final football matches. Although there is no checking during the day, the owners say they have new safety measures in place to avert any eventualities.
We are not going to allow in any bag, any laptop, anything. Everyone will come in as he is.
Security expert Moses Matsiko says this is not enough.
Let those venues be, first of all, cleared. Let them be swept, preferably by specialized teams or personnel. Terrorists are also clever people. They could have planted anything way before the match.
We do it and then
Our next visit was to Chili's Bar and Restaurant, a few meters from the junction to Uganda Christian University. I casually strolled into the venue without being checked. Again, the security expert's opinion is that this laxity puts people's lives at peril.
Women will also be searched in all parts of the body, and I have bought new metal detectors.
It will be unwise for us to just expect bombs or whatever it is. It could be grenades thrown in public areas. It could be using force to get weapons from people, and then it is used against the public.
As many people look forward to watching the games away from home, there are others who will not take chances, with the memories of the bomb blasts in Kampala still fresh on their minds. Over 70 people were killed in 2 explosions as they watched the final of the World Cup in July 2010.
I watched the World Cup final from my room. they check, but I don't really trust the security because I believe there was still security that day, but it still happened.
Encourage everybody to report anything to police and other authorities that appears a bit unusual in any place of public interest. Abandoned bags, dead animals, could be dolls, could be unusual gifts.
The police say that the terror threat by the Al-Shabaab to hit Uganda is still on, but many people choose to ignore the warning.
Tomorrow we are going to watch World Cup at Casablanca, and I'm not worried about the terrorists because I know this is far from town. The terrorists cannot reach.
Critics say that more often than not, the security personnel at access points normally concentrate on searching the people who are accessing different venues and ignore the threat of armed attacks. Therefore, the security expert Masiko Moses told NTV that it is ideal to have a response unit on standby just in case such eventualities arise. Although body searches and frisking are key, security operatives have been warned against allowing long queues to form.
To see where most areas that have been hit by terrorists, let's say in the Middle East, sometimes once they realize that security is a bit heightened, they camouflage, they join those long queues, and of course they blow up themselves.
It is all systems go for the action in Brazil. Showtime is just around the corner. But we must be extra careful because any lapses in security and safety can be taken advantage of to wreak havoc. Sudil Biarhanga, NTV.
Moving on, many hospitals in Uganda are in deplorable state and lack the basic necessities like medicine and beds. One of those is BUGIRI Hospital in Busoga sub-region. The Busoga Yaife group has asked Parliament to intervene to prompt government action on the promises made to them but which have never been fulfilled.
A group of Busoga has petitioned Parliament over the poor state of BUGIRI Hospital. The Busoga Yaife group want the hospital to be included on the list of those to be rehabilitated in this financial year.
Since it was constructed then, it has never been given any facelift. And the population it was handling was less than 50,000 people by then.
Among their complaints are the decaying walls, the poor drainage system, no bathrooms, lack of safe storage facilities, and the deplorable state of the maternity ward that forces women to deliver their babies on the floor.
We're requesting Parliament to table our petition to the House and then immediately engage the Ministry of Health.
The Speaker of Parliament, Rebecca Kadaga, directed the chairperson of the Health Committee, Dr. Chris Bariomonsi, to receive the petition.
The Right Honourable Speaker has asked me to assure you that this petition has come at the right time. She's going to forward it to the Health Committee of Parliament. As I've told you, the Health Committee is now looking at the budgetary proposals for the Ministry of Health, and the committee will also summon the Minister responsible for health and his team, and then this matter will be discussed.
In May, the Health Ministry had promised that it had plans to renovate the hospital, which was constructed in 1968 and has a 200-bed capacity.
Now, Rwanda has had a fair share of violence, with a big part of its history marred in bloodshed. The 1994 genocide saw lots of deaths, with official accounts putting the figures registered to 800,000. The 4 months period of bloodshed would, however, end with the takeover of Kigali from Juvenal Habyarimana by the Rwanda Patriotic Army under the commandership of now President Paul Kagame. But what has changed at these liberation sites 20 years ago? Our reporter Nduhuchire went on a tour of these sites and brings us that report.
Rwanda is a country of rolling hills, lush greenery and meandering rivers. But beneath this marvel is a nation with a checkered history. The 1994 Rwanda genocide convulsed the nation after the Interahamwe militias killed close to 800,000 Tutsis and moderate Hutus in an orgy of bloodletting that lasted 100 days. As the country marks the 20th liberation anniversary, we trace the path of the guerrilla struggle born out of a wave of mass discontent by nationals who had been expelled from their birthplace. The Rwanda Patriotic Front was covertly formed in 1987 as a guerrilla movement and political party. Many of its founding commanders, like the late Fred Gisa Rwigema and the current Rwanda President Paul Kagame, were part of the NRA guerrilla outfit led by President Museveni. After the 5-year Luwero bush struggle, the NRA captured power in January 1986. However, for these army officers, the Luwero Liberation War would only serve as the first phase of the struggle. Another monumental challenge lay ahead: how to liberate themselves from the shackles of bondage. And on October 1st, 1990, the RPA officers quietly sneaked arms out of the barracks, marched through western Uganda and invaded Rwanda.
I was the commander of military police of Uganda. I escorted the whole force coming in here. So they came as forces which was going to be deployed elsewhere. So the NRA didn't know that we are coming.
One of the sites at Kagitumba in eastern Rwanda bordering Tungamo today bears a lot of symbolism. It is where the first shot of the struggle was fired. According to General Sam Kanchemera Kaka, who was amongst the senior commanders, Rwigema's death took a toll on the struggle.
He was the one who had all the strategic plans on him.
But they later relocated, as General Patrick Nyamvumba, who is now Chief of Defense Staff, recalls.
The leader of our struggle at the time was General Fred. He died on the second day, and then our current president took over from there.
A lot has since changed in this town since the first bullet was fired. The story of who fired the first shot, though, is marred in controversy. Some point to a junior officer called Sergeant Musisi.
The first bullet I can't tell, but there was a group of soldiers who attacked. The commander who was it's called
This is a border outpost brimming with business activity. It is no longer the military fortress it was 24 years ago when the RPA were first rooted out. The hilly terrain and the death of commanders, Rwigema, Chris Bunyenyezi and Dr. Peter Baingana, worked against the guerrilla fighters as government forces inflicted victory on them. The RPA later retreated to the Virunga Mountains and changed tactics, launching raids and ambushes on the enemy forces. When the RPA lost at Kagitumba, they moved swiftly to Nyagatare, which was a supply route and one they could use to access logistics from Uganda.
Then the enemy came and occupied the other. There is a farm there called the Overpalms, former Overpalm. That's where they came and occupied.
Nyagatare could also be used as a launchpad to capture northern Rwanda. However, Nyagatare, which was teeming with wildlife, posed a threat to the rebels. There were also limited water sources in this area. They later on moved to Gabiro, where the guerrillas first encountered foreign fighters, including French and Congolese soldiers who were defeated.
We had to announce that indeed the war of liberation has started and we had to have something to show for it. And therefore, Gabiro presented a very good, if you will, garrison in terms of our success and the government failure.
Their base in Gabiro has now been turned into an elite combat training center for the army in the country because of the role it played during the struggle. 2 years into the struggle, the RPF established headquarters at Umurindi. It's at this house where President Paul Kagame often met with his commanders to plan the final onslaught on Kigali.
All operations were planned from, including the campaign against genocide, was planned and, if you will, executed from here.
It is also here where the RPA interacted with those willing to fund the struggle. Many of these sites now stand out as the lasting vestiges, 24 years after the RPA launched this liberation struggle. This is the trench or the bunker where President Paul Kagame, the then commander of the Rwanda Patriotic Front, would come to take refuge anytime there was a crossfire. It is now going to be designated as a museum for the part it played in the liberation struggle. Sheila Nduhuchire, NTV, Rwanda.
Thank you, Sheila Nduhuchire. We will take a short break and return with these stories and so much more. Still to come on Talk of the Nation tonight, examining the tribal undercurrents in the Rwenzori region and how they could have sparked the recent clashes. And Uganda Rugby Cranes win the first leg of the 2014 Elgon Cup competition against Kenya. Ntv Weekend Edition continues shortly.
Watching NTV Weekend Edition.
Wondered how much Roycom Choosy Mix you need to make the most delicious stew? It's simple. Just add 1 full tablespoon to every stew.
At last, the perfect stew. All you need is 1 tablespoon for 1 perfect stew.
Over the years, my NSSF has had some good days and some difficult ones. But through it all, they have persevered to achieve some major milestones. They have given me better tools to take control of my future. Doing better is what they stand for. They made a promise to me and they are keeping it. My NSSF listens when I speak. I feel more connected to my NSSF because they put me first, and I'm confident I will be paid all of my savings. I also know my savings are secure and are being invested in the best way possible, which means that I get the best interest on my savings to turn my dreams and ambitions into reality. And I don't mean to brag, but my NSSF is pioneering some of the greatest ideas our nation has ever seen. But what makes me really proud is that my NSSF is supporting those making a difference in my community. So how is this important to me? Simple. It's the comfort of knowing my NSSF is doing better for me today than ever before to give me a better future.
NSSF, a better future.
Episode of the Dr. Tana Show.
People think that I'm strange now.
His wife called me to find out why he's been acting this weird.
I've hardly seen a live game in my own home.
What? This is sad.
People want to talk to me about the game.
Did you watch the game last night?
Hey! So I try by all means to avoid them because I haven't seen the games yet.
We told him not to get that decoder.
Look at this family before they got DSTV. Then look at them now. These guys are enjoying sporting action like the Champions League, the EPL, NBA,
yes,
Formula 1,
yes, Doctor,
and so many more on Super Sport channels on DSTV. If it's not DSTV, then turn it off.
Yes,
just turn it on.
You are brilliant.
Hey babe.
Hi love, how are you? After last time, I've been worried.
Huh?
It's okay love, I've taken the test and I'm not pregnant.
Oh, thank goodness.
But before we celebrate, I think it's important we should start practicing safe sex.
Safe what?
Safe sex by using condoms.
But Fifi, don't you love me?
Yes, I do.
Don't you trust me?
I trust you.
But condoms are for people who don't trust each other.
Kenny, all of our friends are using condoms.
But Fifi...
Kenny, are you ready to be a father? Are you ready to meet my parents?
You know what, Fifi? You have a point.
Condoms protect you from unplanned pregnancies and sexually transmitted infections, including HIV. Talk to your partner about using condoms today, because if it's not on, it's not safe.
You are watching NTV Weekend Edition.
Welcome back, and the talk of the nation tonight is the situation in the Rwenzori region. The tribal undercurrents which were bubbling below the radar came to surface when members of an ethnic community attacked others in the Rwenzori region. As the market details of what transpired begin to emerge, some believe the cause of this conflict was sparked off by the creation of a multiplicity of chiefdoms in the region and the fight for supremacy. But the Rwenzori region has always been a festering wound even to past regimes. To discuss the complexities of ethnicity and the spectre of conflict is Makerere University political historian Mwambusia Ndebesa. Welcome, Mr. Ndebesa.
Thank you. Good evening, viewers.
I'll get right into the discussion. To understand the current crisis, I think it is safe to say that we need to look at the historical perspective where the Bakonzo, the Bamba and other ethnicities were treated like serfs under the Toro kingdom subjugation. The creation of the Rwenzori kingdom seemed to have brought the Rwenzori struggle marked by bloodshed to an end. Why are the Bamba and the Bakonzo now at loggerheads, if at all they are?
Thank you. As you have rightly put it, the people in the Rwenzori region, especially the Bamba Bakonzo, have suffered under double imperialism. There was a colonial imperialism, and the British imperialism, that is, and then there was the Toro sub-imperialism. So they have suffered under injustice. And the struggle for justice in that region started well long during the colonial period. And by the way, the first state of emergency declared in independent Uganda was in Bunyangabo in the Rwenzori region in 1963, far from what people believe that it was Buganda in 1966. So there has been a long struggle for justice in that region, and it partly explains what has happened now in that region. But it is tied up with political patronage, the contemporary political patronage.
Okay, I'd like to look at that a little bit in detail. The question of ethnicity tends to play out through supremacy fights more often than not. Could this conflict have been sparked off by the recent installation of the Bamba titular head, which the Bakonjo reject?
Partly so, but we must look at it from two angles.
Okay.
There is, I think, a conflict between the Bakonzo and the people of that region, within the region, the Basongora, within KASESE, and then the Bamba. Let me first explain that one of the Basongora.
Please do it. Go ahead.
One, it is that the Basongora had also been had also faced an injustice, especially when they were evicted from Queen Elizabeth National Park to create space for the park. And some did go to Congo, others went to other different places. So there was that injustice. And then recently, after the debacle in Congo, they came back to Uganda. And they were resettled on a certain piece of land, a government piece of land, where the Bakonzo had also gone and settled, but they were evicted from that land to resettle the other group, the Basongora. That is one, the land question. Two, I'm told plans are underway to recognize the kingdom of Busongora, which the Bakonzo do not like.
Yes.
And three, the government also is planning to give titles, land titles, to the Basongora who came back and settled on that piece of land that I talked about. And four, there are also plans to have a Basongora district cut off from KASESE district. You know, those are issues to be addressed squarely because they are disturbing, I think, the Bakonzo as a district, as a people, and as a kingdom. Now let's go to the Bamba one.
Okay.
The conflict between the Bakonzo and Bamba has been sparked off, I think, by the installation of the Obdingia, by whatever name, I'm not sure whether I'm pronouncing it correctly. Because for quite some time, the government was reluctant to recognize the Obusinga of KASESE. But after the 2005 elections, the government, the Bakonzo voted Chisabesije and FDC.
Okay.
And this did not please the powers that be. And thereafter, in order to placate the Bakonzo, because I think they also did that because the government was reluctant to recognize their Obusinga. So shortly after that, thereafter, the government moved in to placate the Bakonzo and recognized their Obusinga in 2009 without first negotiating the boundaries, the limits, the jurisdiction of where the Obusinga would go. Remember, some people might want to know out there that in the Bundubujo district, I'm told almost a half of the population in the Bundubujo district are still Bakonzo. And therefore, that is likely to cause a problem with the Obdingia. Now, when there was a by-election by Honorable Winnie Chiza, I think government expected to win. But when she won overwhelmingly, I think the government thought that the people of KASESE were ungrateful and voted differently from what the government had expected. Immediately they recognized it, or thereafter there was a process of recognizing the Obdingia of Bamba, which displeased the Bakonzo, much more so the Bakonzo who are residing in Bundubujo geographically. That is the question that I think has disturbed these people.
Very interesting perspective. Now, there are those who believe that the recognition of kingdoms and chiefdoms is largely a scheme by the central government to create avenues to dispense patronage. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, well, even the districts, the whole question of districthood, the whole question of creating kingdoms, I'm told many more are on the line. Actually, the Ministry of Culture is supposed to recognize about 8, and many more are applying. And I think it is partly used as a patronage networks or patronage centers to get political support. But I want to clarify here that also the attackers, the Rwenzori attackers, did not necessarily attack Bamba. They actually attacked government installations as well as some families of the Basongora. So I think the issue is primarily a conflict between the Bakonzo and central government over the question of Busongora as well as the Obdingia. And therefore, that is why they are annoyed with the government for having recognized Obdingia as well as the process of recognizing Busongora Kingdom, Busongora District, and giving titles to the people of Busongora. I think that is where the issue might be squarely originating, although there are other factors involved.
Yeah, obviously it looks like there are several factors. Now, we've had reports emerge that there is agitation for a Rwenzururu state in a territory that extends to the Democratic Republic of Congo. Of course, there are large numbers of Bakonzo there, as you said yourself, and the Bamba. Is a secessionist agenda viable, in your opinion?
Viable, it may not be a viable, but it's possible. I'm not saying that is exactly what it is. I don't know the facts on the ground.
Yeah, these are just reports emerging.
Yeah,
obviously.
but in the past, when the people of KASESE fought, in the or the Rwenzori people fought in the 1960s, they had actually declared secession. They had declared the secession to join Congo. So it is possible to resurrect it. But I don't think that that is what is on their mind. Okay. Basically, I think they feel that there is an injustice against them by creating a new district, creating a new kingdom, new kingdoms for that matter. But I don't think fundamentally it is secession. But when such an uprising takes place, anything can happen. There can be another angle and dimension to it, and they can declare secession, considering that they have got a history of resistance. In my opinion, this is political resistance much more than cultural resistance.
In your view, how better could they have responded to this this perceived injustice?
Well,
effectively responded.
Well, they may think they are effectively responding, but the issue is, I think both government and the people of KASESE should have used the civil means to resolve the conflict. However, government also should have been tolerant enough not to look like it was taking sides, because the coronation of the Obdingia or the Umudingia, whatever name he is, created some tension in the sense that there were speeches made there, insinuating that the Bakonzo were intransigent, that they were not ready to cooperate with others, and they felt that much more was in the offing for them to lose some of their territories. So I think there should have been a dialogue between the people of the region and the government to find out the limits, the jurisdiction, the boundaries of which cultural group and the other. After all, if it is a cultural organization, does it need to have physical boundaries? Does culture have physical boundaries? In my opinion,
it shouldn't have physical boundaries.
It shouldn't have physical boundaries. And even these kings that are being created actually are not hereditary. They could as well elect them. I don't know why originally the Obusinga Warwe's rule did not accept to be hereditary, in which case the Bamba would also have the opportunity to be the king, of the Rwenzururu kingdom. There is no much deal here, but I think government needs to play a mediatory role. It mediates interests, but without being biased, in my opinion.
Okay, now just maybe a final question tonight. The question of land, especially in KASESE, which pits the Bakonzo against the Basongora, who are cattle keepers, is another complex issue, which has persisted for decades. How do you think this can be resolved, if at all it can be resolved? And that's our final question tonight.
It can be resolved. Why not? I mean, all conflicts can be resolved as long as...
It has persisted for decades.
Well, conflicts can be managed. They don't have to be violent in the first instance. And conflicts are not necessarily bad, by the way. It is when they become violent that they may be bad. How can it be managed? First of all, I think government should try and find where to resettle some of these returning Basongora if they cannot fit where they are. Secondly, you can negotiate how to resettle these two people. Otherwise, when the Bakonzo, for example, feel that the Basongora are getting a bigger share than they are getting, that is likely also to cause friction within the region. But all in all, I want to say that the government should mediate different interests, because that is its role. The state should mediate interests and should not show any sides in resolving some of these conflicts. And I think both sides, whether the Bakonzo or other communities in the region and the central government, should ensure that they resolve this one. But let me tell you the last.
Okay.
I want to suggest to Parliament or and the government that as much as I heard there was a moratorium on the creation of new districts, there should also be a moratorium on the creation of new kingdoms, so that we first understand how they should be handled. There should be a policy, there should be a law to see how kingdoms can be created, how they can be managed, what are their jurisdictions, what are their boundaries. Otherwise, if there is no moratorium on the creation of new kingdoms, every tribe, every clan is going to have a kingdom, and they are likely to clash as they have clashed in Western Uganda.
And that is a very perfect note to end this conversation. Thank you for joining us on Talk of the Nation.
Thank you for inviting me.
That was Makerere University political historian Mwambusia Ndewesa joining us to discuss the clashes in the Rwenzori region. We will take a short break and return with NTV Weekend Sport.
You are watching NTV Weekend Edition.
Mama's cooking. Let's help her. Wait! My mama says before touching food, You should wash your hands with soap.
But my hands are clean.
Can't see germs, but they're everywhere. Look under special blue light. To protect against germs, I recommend regularly use soap. Safeguard removes millions of germs, and additionally, it inhibits regrowth of germs that might cause skin rashes for hours. That is why me, mommy, daddy, and my brother regularly use Safeguard.
Supported by the African Medical Association.
Call this the Skeleton Coast. It's meant as a warning, but we took it as a challenge. What better test for the all-new Ranger? Having enough grunt to get here is one thing. You also need the fuel economy to get back. Built for any challenge.
Welcome to NTV Weekend Sport. The Uganda Rugby Cranes have won the first leg of the 2014 Elgon Cup competition after garnering 21 points against 14 for the Kenya side. Uganda now need to draw or lose by 6 points in Nairobi to win the championship that has eluded them for over 7 years. We have the highlights of the game that also aired live on NTV.
The ball available for Kenya at the base of the scrum, of the ruck, Isaac Adimo decides to go to boot, short kick. Clever kick, but offside to the Kenyans. Big hits everywhere we go. Penalty for Uganda. Aredok takes it quickly. Sarunjaji with the ball. Big! And a try for the Kenya Lions. Big and drive. Sarunjaji out. What a try by the Uganda Cranes. Wonderful score there. The crowd goes bananas. The crowd goes bananas. They're walking them. Well played, Uganda. Can they make it? Penalty try to Uganda. Wow!
What about that?
How about that? The crowd going bananas.
A penalty from right about the halfway.
Brilliant kick. Kenya with 10 years to go. Knock forward, and the game is up. Uganda have managed to secure the first leg of the Elgon Cup, and the history books remain unrewritten because no team has ever won back-to-back games in the Elgon Cup against the other team.
Now, Uganda's representatives to this year's Sekafa Clubs Championship, KASESE FC, have been placed in a tough Group B with hosts APR and Gor Mahia FC of Kenya. The Ugandan champions, who recently played against the same opposition and won the Mapinduzi Cup in Zanzibar, head to Rwanda as a more rejuvenated side after retaining the National League title.
The 2014 Sekafa Club Championship draws held in the Rwandan capital Kigali have placed KASESE FC against Rwandan giants APR, Kenyan champions Gor Mahia and Telecom of Djibouti. However, the Ugandan champions head to Rwanda boasting of experience after winning the regional Mapinduzi Cup in January this year before retaining the local league title. KASESE's biggest threat in the group will be Kenya's Gor Mahia, who are expected to field a number of Uganda Cranes players. The Kenyan side is also coached by former Uganda Cranes tactician Bobby Williamson. Rwandan champions Ryan Sport lead Group A with Tanzania's Young Africans, Coffee of Ethiopia, Atabal of South Sudan and KMKM of Zanzibar also placed in the same group. Group C has two Rwandan sides in Vitalo and Police FC, with their only foreign opposition being El Merik of Sudan and Benadaya of Somalia. 14 teams are taking part in this year's championship, sponsored by Rwandan President Paul Kagame to a tune of $60,000. Sam Poza, NTV Sport.
And on to basketball, Warriors registered a 10-point win over former champions Power in the National Basketball League game played at YMCA Wandegea last night. Ronnie Kaseu and Ivan Enabu were inspirational for Warriors, while Paul Lodong and Joseph Ikong were impressive for Power.
Warriors reinstated themselves as contenders for this season's National Basketball League accolade by dominating three quarters to register a 10-point win over Power at YMCA Wandegea. The 2012 league winners claimed the first and second quarter with a 29-16 and 23-19 score and faltering in the third by 20-30. They, however, regained their dominance and won the fourth 30-26 for an overall score of 102 against Power's 92. Ronnie Kaseo top scored for Warriors with 23, Stephen Okias and Ivan Enabu contributing 21 and 17 respectively. Paul Odong was the most impressive for Power with the highest individual score at 21 and Joseph Ekong managing 20, but their efforts were not good enough to save their side from going down.
This is a regular season game. We come out every day to play hard and make sure we try to win games. But if we don't win, it is a learning experience for the team and the boys especially, so we'll go back to the drawing board and improve it.
Well, it's a good start for us. We come from a very tough place. We hope to improve from where we are. Well, we're taking every step as it comes. This is definitely a good step forward. We hope to keep moving in the same direction. We're not perfect, but we'll try and minimize our mistakes.
The league continues tomorrow with games at YMCA Wandegea.
Moving on, Mukono, Bishop, West and Namuyenje under-14 teams have won the Mukono District Ball Game competitions organised by the Ministry of Education to spread awareness of non-communicable diseases. The one-day event attracted 9 teams for football and netball games. Organisers believe that spreading awareness among children about the need for regular physical activity is a strategy to reach their parents who are more vulnerable to the diseases. The Sports for Health programme is a Ministry of Health project that aims at using sport as a tool to encourage health among Ugandans. The program that rolled out in Wakiso on Thursday before heading to Mukono is expected to cover the whole country with regular monthly competitions organised in each district. Among the conditions targeted are diabetes, obesity and high blood pressure.
Using football and netball to be the primary sports that we can use to spread the gospel around, that when the kids get involved in these sports, they will know that these sports have endless benefits.
And when we do this in our youth, you find that the level of awareness will move up to the parents. To me, I find this very healthy, and we need to support them so that we achieve exactly what we want.
And finally, Nambole has been formally confirmed by the police as the only venue that will telecast the 2014 FIFA World Cup final match between Germany and Brazil tomorrow. Police have beefed up their presence at the venue as management line up a match between ex-internationals and referees, among other entertainment activities, to match the passion in Brazil, as Alfred Odong reports.
Police have deployed at Mandela National Stadium, Nambole, where the 2014 FIFA World Cup final between Germany and Argentina will be screened live tomorrow on giant screens. In an effort to avert a repeat of the 2010 World Cup final terror attacks that saw over 70 lives, security officers are much more vigilantly carrying out thorough checks on individuals, vehicles and luggage at gate before entry.
Our security has provided the venue with 4 ambulances, fully fledged, 2
of the stadium. And we are going to ensure that we put in place all measures possible for the success of tomorrow's event.
With the security checks in place, soccer aficionados will be backing their respective countries to win the World Cup. Celebrating the 2014 FIFA World Cup final at Nambole will kickstart with a match between ex-internationals and referees at 4 p.m. Alfred Odong, NTV Weekend Sport.
And that brings NTV Weekend Sport to a close.